Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this latest webinar from the series run by the TUC and West Midlands Combined Authority Skills Partnership. If you've not met me before, my name is Matt Pointon. I'm the lead on the partnership. I'm employed by the TUC, and I'll be delivering this webinar today. I'm going to apologise, first of all, for the really bad quality of the image. Don't worry, you don't have to look at me for that long because we've got a PowerPoint later. It is because when the TUC was selecting a laptop, they decided to choose one with an awful camera on it. So sorry about that. I'm not doing everything here today because behind the scenes, we've got Yusuf. So if you are having any tech issues, he'll be the one to contact. Just leave a message in the chat on my screen. It's on the right. I've been having a look through the chat, so we've got lots of people putting comments in there. Some names I recognise, like Fred, for example. People in Torbay, people on the Wirral, East of England, Belfast, North Wales, Cambridge. So we've got people from all over here. Bolton, Bristol, our comrades at GFTU are in as well. Southern. Lots of different unions as well. Orkney Isles, I think that's the most exotic so far. So yeah, great to see everybody. Digitally, I mean. We have someone from Bulgaria as well. So that is I think that is the most exotic we've had so far on this webinar. So, okay. And we're going to be talking about assertiveness today. So if you're not here for assertiveness, you're probably in the wrong place. But stick around anyway, because it's a really interesting topic. It's one that I actually developed this PowerPoint because I was asked to do so by PCS, one of our unions, and we delivered it in workplaces, and it was really successful. And it was one of those where we kept getting asked to do it and do it and do it. So that's why I thought it might be a good topic for a webinar. Now, a few announcements before we go on. So the first thing is, of course, this is one of a series of webinars. The next one, we've penciled in the date of the 3rd of March. And it'll be at the same time, same platform. So you'll go onto the Union Learn page to sign up for it. And it's around the topic of mental health. So we haven't finalized the details yet, but we're hoping to get a couple of really exciting speakers on that. So do tune in for that one, because that's a topic that really keeps coming up again and again. And the reason we're doing it is because of the effects of the pandemic. The isolation has really affected lots of people, both in workplaces, but also, we don't just exist in the world of work. We have parents, we have kids, and who are not in workplaces, and particularly, I think, for the elderly, isolation's been a massive thing. So, that does have a really bad effect on people's mental well-being. So hopefully that webinar will help us to support people both in the workplace and beyond. The next announcement is, as usual, we have our quarterly ULR forum. That's for the Midlands, because this is a webinar run by the West Midlands for the West Midlands. Although, as I was saying earlier, we've got people from all over here, so I appreciate that is that's excuse me, that is not. Excuse me, my phone just went there. I thought I'd switched that off. So awfully sorry about that. But yeah, a lot of it doesn't apply for, but if you are within the Midlands region, then come along. We've got some good speakers lined up again, and we always have a nice little chat in there. It's a really supportive forum. So that's on the 8th of April, and you would sign up with Michelle Kesterton for that. I'm going to put her email in the chat so we know how to do that. There we are. Okay, so that's that. So the other thing is, as well, not yesterday, 2 days ago, on the 15th, we, of course, had our Union Link conference, which was digital this year. Unfortunately, I do much prefer the face-to-face ones, I have to admit, but it was a success. We had around 200 people there, which was really nice, and there was some good presentations. I think the General Secretary of the WEA was on there, and we had a great panel discussion with the General Secretary of the Bakers Union, Teresa from Unison, Sidra from Community, and Steve from CWU. So really good stuff going on there. If you missed it and you want to catch up, it is up on our Union Learn channel. So our Union Learn channel, all of these webinars and the conference are all recorded and posted on there. So that's up there. Yusuf, who's behind the scenes, he's put the link there for us. So do have a look at our Union Learn channel, because, you know, even if you just want to like listen to the keynote speech from Francis or something like that, it's on there. And of course, if you missed our last webinar, which was with the Writers Guild of Great Britain, with William, and it was all about writing your first script. It was really popular, that one. Then that is up there as well. So, you know, if you miss it on the day, at least you can catch up a bit that way. One more announcement before I actually get on to what I'm meant to be talking about is the TUC in the Southwest region, which many of you will know, they run the Tolpuddle Martyrs Festival. They've been running during the lockdown a radical history school, and every month they have a lecture. It's free to attend online, all about something to do with radical history. Often, but not always connected to the Southwest region itself. This month, on the 1st of March, they have one in conversation with Sheila Rowbottom, and she's quite a renowned feminist. So if that's something that interests you, you know, there's the link. Pop in there and have a look. Support what they're doing down in the Southwest. I think it's really good. I've mentioned in the past that there is quite a lot of working class history and radical history stuff out there. So our partners at GFTU and WEA, they've been running a working class history course of lectures. And I know GFTU are here. So if you want to put a link into your course, you're more than welcome to do so. Because that might be of interest to people. So there we are. That's all the boring stuff done. Now let's get on to the topic of the day, and that is assertiveness. Now, what we always do is I'm going to be going through a PowerPoint. The problem with Crowdcast is, unlike Zoom, you can't butt in and ask me questions, but we do have an ask a question facility at the bottom. So there are 2 questions there already. If I pop them up, how long is the webinar, and is there a content list, please? That's from Susie. And Andy's already replied for me. He says it lasts an hour. Yeah, we do try to finish the actual presentation within 40 to 45 minutes. But then often people have a lot of questions, but it will not exceed an hour. So, and somebody's put, I've registered for the webinar. This is Jen, but I have another meeting. I'm hoping I can attend this. Is it going to be recorded? Well, yes, it is. And Yusuf's already answered that for you anyway. So yeah, as I said, they're all recorded, and it will be on the Union Learn channel, although you may have to wait a while for it to get up there, you know, like a week or so, whilst the you know, recording formats and so on and so forth. So there we are. That's that. Now it's the hard bit. Oh, Shanaz has said hello from LRD. Where is LRD? I've never heard of it. It's obviously short for somewhere, but I've never heard of that. I know LDN's London and MCR's Manchester, but I don't know where LRD is. So if you could let me know that, just quite interested there. And Yusuf, can you share the PowerPoint, please? And there we are. So this is what we're going to be talking about. It's all about assertiveness. And I like to start this by getting people to say, if I say assertiveness to you, what comes into your mind? And you know, normally we have a chat here, but it's not possible on Crowdcast. So if you could put in maybe a few words, just one word, that when I say assertiveness, that's what you think of. That word is what you think of. So could people put that in the chat, and we'll see what people come up with, because this might be relevant to what we talk later. So what do you think of? Labour Research Department. Of course it is. I've taught your people at the PCS conference. Hi, Anne Ainsworth from PCS. Anne knows this because we first developed this session for her up in PCS in the Northwest. So thanks, Anne. We've got loads now. Pushback, pushy, confidence, strength, win-win. That's interesting. Determined, bossiness, control. Oh no, they're whizzing up too fast for me. Boundaries, confidence, confident, democratic, control, influence, getting your point across, communication, firm, influencing, express yourself without fear, adult conversation, respect. Okay, strength of communication. So there's a lot about communication. There's a lot about confidence. It's interesting that some of the words that were popping up there were quite negative in their context. So, bossiness. I mean, we don't see that as a positive word. Aggressive. We don't think of being aggressive as positive. So that's quite interesting, because what's the difference between being assertive and aggressive? And I've noticed more's come up here, and somebody just talked about mansplaining. Now, some of you might not be familiar with mansplaining. The term came up in an essay, a series of feminist essays. I read them about a year or two back, and for the life of me, I can't remember the author. But it's where kind of men talk down to women because they obviously know better because they're men, and that I suppose fits in with the bossiness and the aggressiveness. But that's not what I'm after. I don't want to create a room full of mansplainers or bossy or aggressive people. But I'm looking more towards the positive stuff. So about respect, about being able to influence, definitely, and about having confidence. And confidence is really quite hard for a lot of people. Some people are naturally confident. I'm thinking of our current Prime Minister. I would say he is quite a confident chap. It doesn't always work, but never mind. He is confident, and when people are confident, it's so much easier to get your point across, isn't it? It's so much easier to go in there and say what you feel needs to be said. And when you're not, you might have something really valuable to say, but you don't quite know if it's your place to say it, or you might feel you can't because of these, the mansplaining, the bossiness, the aggressiveness of other people in the room. For me, when I think of assertiveness, there's two words that spring to mind, and the first one is fear. And what stops us from being assertive, I think, is fear. I think it's fear about, well, will it be taken the wrong way? What will people think of me? Like if I actually come in there and I think I've got something valuable to say today, but I don't know, I'm quite new in this organization, or I'm younger than other people, or I'm a woman, or I'm from an ethnic minority or something, like, really, were people just going to think, oh, it's them again, like just spouting off? And I don't want to be thought ill of, because I think human beings, we want to be liked. And I think that's one of those basic fundamental human things, that we actually want people to like us. We don't want them to hate us. And if we raise our head above the parapet too much, we have a feeling that people, whether they're people we admire and respect, like our friends, our family, or whether it's people we don't, like some managers, not all, then at the end of the day, it can be, I want to be thought positively of, and if I assert myself too much, will that affect it? And of course, the big thing there, the other word that comes to me, is power. To me, this is all about power, because powerful people are more confident about being assertive. If you have the power, assertiveness is so much easier. And so I want you to bear those two words, fear and power, in your mind, because I will be coming back to them. Now, I'm going to crack on. I can see there are questions in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to address the questions at the end, but I do have a call out to Yusuf, who's our tech guy here. Like, if there is a question that you really think I should answer now, Yusuf, could you let me know, and then I'll stop the presentation and answer that specific question. Otherwise, I'll deal with them at the end. And can we have the next slide, please? So, what is assertiveness? Well, I would say we've basically covered that in a little kind of discussion we had there. But Liz is asking any captions. Is that a possibility, Yusuf? I do appreciate I'm talking rather fast. Probably doesn't help. But yeah, I don't know that captions are available. But like I say, Yusuf can get back to you on that, and he can let you know whether captions are a thing or not that we can do. I know we do them at some events. I don't know if they're available on this platform. So assertiveness. Assertiveness means standing up for your personal rights, expressing thoughts, feelings, and beliefs in direct, honest, and appropriate ways. And I think the appropriate's important because that's where the aggressive and the bossiness comes in. You know, maybe what the aggressive and bossy person, maybe the mansplaining it, what they're saying is actually the correct thing, but are they doing it appropriately? Are they doing it with respect? And that's where I think a line is crossed. But speaking up is hard to do. Sometimes we speak up when we shouldn't, and sometimes, and this is probably more often, we don't speak up when we should. And I think a lot of that was captured in our discussion earlier, so I'll move on. Yusuf, can I? Yeah, brilliant. So the way we look at this is you're going to see a few of these, and they're these ranges, and this is the range of acceptable behavior. I do apologize for the spelling. I got the slide from somewhere on the internet, and this can apply to all scenario, really, right? So, you know, wherever we're in a particular situation, there's this green area where it's fine. Then there's the yellow areas where we're kind of pushing at the barriers a bit. And then there's the red areas where actually, whoa, that's a bit wrong. Okay. And I think it's really interesting. And when I do this in a workplace, what I might do is say, okay, what are the green areas for today where we are? And, you know, people would say, well, to listen respectfully, and that's certainly within the green area, and, you know, but also participate a bit when it's asked. So, you know, if you know, I ask what words do you think of with assertiveness, you know, to actually try and come up with something and to take part. And they're all within the green area, you know. But there are certain things where we stray into the yellow. So maybe the too weak in that situation might be where you're listening, you're not actually disrupting in any way, but you know what? You're just not really taking part. You might be on your phone at the same time, or you might be like, you know, closing your eyes, something like that. And so that's like, it's just pushing it. It's a little bit rude, but it's not too bad, but it's just like you're in that yellow area. It's okay, but it's not really right. And then, of course, one could go too weak, and that might be where you actually fall asleep in the class, for example, which I think would be too weak, you know, or just start yawning and say, I'm not interested in this. And then, of course, too strong. It could be where you're answering the questions, but you're not letting other people answer. You keep talking over them and you keep pushing in there first. Or it might be that you answer, you know, appropriately in every other way, but you're using some bad language that you know might upset some of the people in the room. Or it could be that, for example, you know, not everybody in the room speaks one particular language, but a lot of people do. And so you start speaking in that language because, well, most people understand it. So it's okay. Whereas actually we're going to be trying to include everybody in this. And then, of course, the too strong might be if you started, you know, kicking off, like literally, like, you know, shouting at people, screaming at people, walking around, abusing people, and all of those things. So there's this range of acceptable behavior. What's important with this, and there's going to be a couple more of these ranges later, is it's not fixed. So it's not the same in every situation. So your green area within a business meeting, for example, might be much smaller than your green area at home with your family. And, so say if you're a younger person, your green area at home with your family might be smaller than when you're out with your mates, and so as human beings, we have to adapt and we have to try and assess what is our green area in every situation. And so the first step to being assertive is kind of maybe read the room. Like, what is this situation? What can I do? What can't I do? And your struggles may be about being too weak, or they may be about being too strong. For me personally, I'm a little bit naughty, but in meetings on Zoom, I'm really bad at sat there doing Minesweeper at the same time during a boring bit, because really this is boring and I'm not that interested. And it's in the okay area, but it's not really what I should be doing. So that's maybe like my failing, that I have to try and work on a bit more. Other people, it may be somewhere at the other end of the spectrum. But our green area is not fixed. And of course, it's not fixed according to our situations, but it's also not fixed according to to who is in the situation. So what I mean by that is, you take, for example, the business meeting. I would say the green area for the boss is a lot bigger than the green area for the employee. Why? Because they have power. So they have power. So whilst if the employee started berating the boss and berating people in the room, then, that would be really definitely within the red area. If the boss started doing it, in some situations, it's okay, because, they're part of their responsibility, their power is to, discipline people. Now, I would say you should never be doing it in public, but, even if it were a private meeting, a one-to-one with the boss, the boss can discipline the individual. The individual, it's much harder for them to discipline the boss. So the green area, even in the same situation, is different between two people, and it's about power. And of course, that can be the same within this situation. I have a bigger green area than everybody else because, I'm leading the session. So therefore I have a degree of power. I can tell Yusuf when to change the slides. Other people can't do that, even if they think, we should get on with this. So the green areas do change according to the person. And there's one thing, there is one kind of individual that I would say has a massive green area within any situation, at any time, and it's a very particular kind of individual. And does anybody know who that might be? It might be one that you don't immediately think of. But you have a think, if we were in a class and there would be one kind of person that would be allowed to shout and scream, to have a go at people, to fall asleep, to stomp around the room or whatever. Do you know what kind of person that might be? Any suggestions in the chat? Well, I tell you what, while people think of it, Yusuf, can we have the next slide? The trainer, Priti Patel. Well, I assume that's the Priti we're on about. No, it's not Priti, and it's not the student. Yes, Dr. Liz O'Cocknell. No, I said that wrong. Yes, a child or a baby. Particularly a baby or a toddler. I think they are the people that really, we give babies so much leeway because, we know they don't understand. So when you're a baby in that very strange position of having a huge amount of power in any situation, and then one of the problems with is we become children and we grow up, is that power, that freedom of action that you have as a baby gets slowly taken away from you. Somebody has stated that our Prime Minister might be compared to a baby. Well, I mean, obviously the TUC is completely non-political, and therefore I wouldn't want to say, although our Prime Minister does come up later. So, okay, yeah, range of behavioural it's not fixed and depends on how much power we hold. And I've put this photograph of a gentleman on there to demonstrate this. Does anybody know who he is? Lisa, you are right about learning disabilities and neurodiversity, and that often comes up. More leeway is given there, and rightly so. Who's the gentleman in the picture? Do we know? And do you know why he might be considered when we're talking about a range of acceptable behavior? I have to say, I mean, this PowerPoint is 2 or 3 years old, and actually his second son is probably the one I would put up now rather than him. Yeah, because it's Prince Philip, and he's driving a car. It's a Land Rover, and that was because at the time when this was first developed, he actually crashed his car into the car of a young mother and a child, almost killed them, and there was no comeback. If you or I did that, there would have been some comeback. And so that, I think, demonstrates how power can have an effect on what we do. Yeah, he was Prince Philip. That's entirely true. And well, yeah, Sue says he did a fair bit of racist stuff. Yes. I don't kind of want to go into that, but yes, I know what you're referring to. And certainly, I think if I'd have said some of the things he said, it wouldn't have been received so kindly. But I do agree with what Liz is saying there. Yes, I would probably, as he's passed away, I think we'll change it for the next time. Okay, Yusuf, next screen, please. So it's all about power, but power is a strange thing, and we yes, Liz. Yeah, how much power do we hold? And there's the power we have in our own eyes and the power we have in the eyes of others. Now, we have two gentlemen here. Again, this is another slide that I probably should change because the top gentleman is no longer the President of the United States of America, although, of course, he was, and he'd quite like to be again, I think. So, and we know who he is, but anyone know who the bottom one is? And the thing is, why am I talking about these two gentlemen with regards to power? You know, because they both held power, but it was very different. Priscilla, as you said, is a cult leader. He was, yes. So the bottom gentleman, his name was Marshall Applewhite. His name was. He referred to himself as Doe, and he was a leader of a cult called Heaven's Gate. No, he's not. Yeah, he was the Heaven's Gate cult leader, and between the 22nd and the 26th of March, 1997, every member of the cult on his command committed suicide. Basically, there was a comet passing the Earth, and they believe we're all descended from aliens, and that if they committed suicide at that time, they would then rise up to through the Heaven's Gate to get on the comet and go to heaven. And he got this through his extensive reading of religious texts, apparently. But I think that these two are a really interesting comparison because, of course, Donald Trump, when he was the president of the USA, had immense power. I mean, he was often described as the most powerful man in the world. But the power was very uneven. So, he had a huge amount of power over US citizens, particularly, for example, a US citizen in prison, because he literally had the power to free them or not. Yeah. But he had a degree of power over British citizens. Not as much because he's not our leader, but, if Britain's economic policy is often, and foreign policy is often dictated by American economic and foreign policy. And so, therefore, what he says has an impact here. He also had power over a Chinese citizen, but far less so because the Chinese are, far less beholden to America economically and militarily. And so, therefore, he had huge power around the world, but it was very uneven. And you could see that in how he interacted with people. For all of his faults, Donald Trump knew his audiences. So the Donald Trump that was standing in the stadium talking to his supporters, he used very inappropriate language. He was very aggressive. Beyond assertive, he was aggressive. He was, very forthright. He was a very different man to the Donald Trump that met Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping, where he was very respectful of them, and he would talk in niceties and talk about friendship rather than what he would do to them. So he understood that his power wasn't even. Now, Marshall Applewhite, or Doe, he was an all or nothing. Within his cult, he had complete, absolute power. He could, tell people to kill themselves, and they would, right? And they did. Yes, but the moment he stepped outside of that cult compound, he was a joke. Nobody took him seriously. And this matters because on a lesser extent, this is all of us. And think about it. If you're somebody who's perhaps come from a traditional family and you're a male and you're the traditional head of that family, you have a lot of power in your household. But maybe you go out to work and you're in a low-paid, low-power job, so for example, a cleaning operative and that, then that can be very frustrating and very hard. And a lot of things like domestic violence, for example, is often linked to that frustration in the wider world being taken out in the domestic sphere where people have power. So, this matters. This really does matter. It can affect people's lives in a massive, massive way. Yusuf, can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So, and the low power double bind, it's very much the same range that we saw before, except, of course, the green and the yellow areas are much smaller. When you don't have power, your green area is tiny. And so you're more likely to not speak up, so you go unnoticed. How many of you, if you're union reps, have been in that workplace and there's something that nobody's happy about at work, but people go, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to lose my job. I'm not going to say anything because, I don't want the manager to bully me, yeah? Or you do speak up, and then you get rejected and you get passed over for promotions and that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that's never happened to a trade union rep in here. But that's the low power double bind, yeah? Where less power and your green area is smaller. So if you could pass on to the next slide, please, Yusuf. What we need to do is to get over that low power bind and make our green area bigger. And the first way we can do this is using the technique called mama bearing. So there's a mama bear with her cubs. Anyone want to put in the chat what they think I'm on about when I'm talking about being a mama bear? Any ideas? Protective. Very good. Yeah. Protective is a great word. Caring. Yeah. Yeah. Supportive. In control, possibly. Guardian. Oh, I like that word. Yeah. So what the mama bear is, and I think this is a key point. It's when the mama bear is fighting, like if you approached her, you wouldn't mess with that bear at the moment, right? But why wouldn't you mess with her? She's not fighting to protect herself. She is fighting to protect her children. Right now, mama bearing does not have to be about your children. Right? It's about when you fight on behalf of somebody else. That gives you strength. Now, think about what I said way back at the beginning. I said, assertiveness, it's about fear. And a lot of that fear is we don't want to be thought badly of, right? So if I do something, if I go to the boss and I say, I want a 5% pay rise because I'm worth it, right? The boss can turn around and go, yeah, right, you think that, don't you? You're just selfish. Everybody else is on far less, but you think you're better than everybody else. And inside, you don't feel great then because, yeah, maybe I'm a bit of a selfish person. Maybe I'm not that nice. Okay. But if you go in there and say, I want a 5% pay rise for all of these people, the people that I'm representing, the people that I'm protecting, then they go, well, you're a bit selfish. And you can turn around and go, well, how am I selfish? Excuse me? I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for them. So then you become selfless. Yeah, you become the person who's actually taking the moral high ground. Whereas it's you're the selfish one because you don't care about these people who work for you. Yeah. So can you see emotionally, psychologically, it's totally different. And when we argue on behalf of someone else, it doesn't have to be as a union rep, it can be in anything else. That gives us power because it means we've taken the personal element out, because that comeback that, oh, you're selfish, oh, you're arrogant, all that, it doesn't work because you're not talking about yourself. You're doing it for somebody else. You're putting yourself in the firing line for somebody else. And it's an immensely powerful tool. And it's powerful because it makes you feel better about yourself, but it's powerful because they cannot personalize things. And when we fail to be assertive, it's often because it's personalized. It becomes about you, right? Whereas when you're mama bearing, you're taking it out of it. It's about the cubs and you're protecting those cubs, be they your members as a trade union rep, be it your mate, be it your kids, be it whatever. Yeah. So mama bearing is the really good technique for increasing assertiveness, and it can be a really simple thing, like, you say to your mate, well, I'll ask for you if you ask for me, something like that. That's it at its most basic level. And of course trade unions are completely based on mama bearing. Okay, Yusuf, next one please. So second one, perspective taking. So looking at the world through the eyes of another person. When I see what you really want, you're more likely to do what I really want. So if I go back to that pay example, right? So I want 5%. Why do I want 5%? Well, because, I'm worth it. Because, do you know what? Like, the cost of living's gone up by actually 7%. So really, I need it. People are struggling to pay their food bills, to do anything, to clothe their kids, right? And then you're telling me I can't have it. Now that's nice, but you're looking at it from your perspective or the perspective of the people you represent. A good idea is to look at the perspective of the other person. So, for example, if it's the boss, why is the boss not likely to be wanting to give you 5%? Because they're worried that they don't have the money. They're worried that they don't have the money, right? And if they give away 5% pay rises, then their bosses are going to see them as weak. Remember, it's all about being personal. That's, and that's not going to reflect well on them. So what you might want to do is do a bit of homework and say, well, okay, let's look at a report on the company. We've got a productivity problem. But you know what? Here's a report from the University of Swansea that says if you want to increase productivity, increase pay. And then you can go there, and rather than going, I want a 5% pay rise because we're worth it, and because we're struggling to feed our kids, what you could go say, look, I need a meeting with you. I've been looking at this. You're part of this company. I'm part of this company. We all care. We care about the company because we care. And you've got a productivity problem. And that bothers us because that could have a massive effect in the long term and could have an effect on you personally as a manager we respect. So I did some research. Got this paper here from a university. It says the more you increase pay, the better you increase productivity. So do you know what? Maybe if we had a 5% pay rise, that would help you with your productivity problem. Now, of course, that's not to say they would bite, right? But you're in a much stronger starting place than you were with going because I'm worth it, right? And you're in a stronger starting place because if they come back and go, well, you're being greedy, you go, well, what do you mean I'm being greedy? I'm looking after your interests here. I'm thinking of you and your product. Are you telling me that productivity isn't a problem? You telling me you don't care about the productivity? Yeah, it's much harder to argue against it. Yeah, And they could go, well, it's a load of rubbish. If you put, you put pay up, you get better productivity. I said, well, I'll be honest, I'm not the expert, but that's a paper from a university. And that suggests that it's not rubbish. That suggests I don't know. Maybe you know more than the academics who spent years studying this. Do you? So you can see it's much harder. Now, Lucia has put a comment in here. Doesn't stop you from being victimized, though. It doesn't, right? The fact is, these are all techniques that can help, but there is always going to be someone who's going to try and victimize. There is always going to be someone who's going to try and attack you, right? That's life, yeah. You be the bully in the playground to the bullying manager or whatever. We've all met those individuals. Could be a family member even. But the fact is, by employing these techniques, it makes it harder for them to do it. So it's not a magic wand, but it does make it harder. So perspective taking, a great technique. Before you make any argument, so you're in that meeting and they're telling you should be working later or something, why are they doing it? And try and build your argument around why it's bad for them. Because being self-focused is the norm. So, and they are being self-focused. Okay, next slide, please. This is just a quote. I'll let you read it yourselves. Backing up the perspective taking. It's from Sun Tzu, very famous book, The Art of War. It's only about 20 pages long. Well recommend it. And he's basically stating why it's a good idea. Okay, let's move on because I've waffled a bit too much for some of these last slides. Right, signal flexibility. Listen to them, offer a choice. So we've got the little lad here, and as you can see, he's with his teddy bear, which suggests it's getting on a bit, and he's watching the telly, isn't he? He's watching his favourite cartoon there. So I always ask people to name him. So the first name that comes up is the one I will use. So if you want to type a name for our little lad, he's been named everything from Callum to Oliver to Ivan, I think, in the past. I've had lots of names for him. Do we have? Oh, he's Ben. Today's Ben. So he's Ben, and you're Ben's mum or dad or caregiver. Sorry, Ned's too late. It's Ben already. And you want, essentially what you want to do is you want to get Ben in bed, right? Ben doesn't want to go to bed because Ben quite likes watching cartoons, and Ben would happily watch cartoons until he fell asleep of his own accord, sat in front of the telly. So what do we do about it? Well, what we do is you sit there and you might go, well, look, Ben, what time is it? And he goes, oh, it's 7:30. What time's your bedtime, Ben? It's 8 o'clock. Okay, so can we get going to bed? But I want to finish this. I want to finish this cartoon. Okay, we've all been there, yeah? So what do we do? Well, we could go, no, you're going to bed now, and that's it. And it would work because in the power dynamics, you have the power, Ben doesn't, right? And what would happen is Ben would shout and scream. You would drag him upstairs, you would put him to bed, and he would shout and scream some more, and you would get him in bed on time, which is your bottom line, but you would have a really nasty headache from it, and he might be shouting and screaming for a hell of a long time, and your temper's raised, and it's probably not the best way forward. You can do it because you have the power, but it's probably not the best strategy. We translate that to a workplace setting. That means a management going, yeah, we're not listening to the workers, we're doing what you want, and you can all go to hell in a handcart type of approach. It can work sometimes, they have the power, but it's often a very, very bad strategy. So a better strategy might be to say, well, I'll tell you what, Ben, you need to be in bed by 8. You know that. We've agreed this in the past. And what do you like every evening before you go to bed? Oh, you like a story, don't you? And we've got Mr. Tickle here. There's an amazing book if you've never read it. And I said, well, I thought we were going to read that Mr. Tickle book tonight. And he's like, oh, I want to read Mr. Tickle. I said, right, okay. So you've got a choice because we don't have time to finish the cartoon and read Mr. Tickle. So you either finish the cartoon, but then you don't have any story. Or if you go to bed this moment, I'll read Mr. Tickle with you. Now, it doesn't matter which one Ben chooses because he's going to be in bed by 8 o'clock. But what matters is you've given a little bit of that power over to him. And you've given him a choice. So whatever he decides, he's going to think he made that decision. Hey, he didn't, because the decision was he's in bed at 8 and you've got what you want. That's your bottom line. But by symbolically giving over a bit of power, then you have made him more likely to work with you. You've made him less likely to be kicking off. And of course, that works in a workplace setting as well, you know. So it could be the pay negotiations are coming up. You want 5%, they're offering you 2%. And you could say, I mean, realistically, you've sat there and you know that the most you're going to get is 3.5%. So you could say, well, yeah, we'd settle for 3.5%, but you know that Christmas bonus that you used to get a 200 quid in vouchers that you stopped giving us a few years ago? We'll go for 3.5% if you give us the vouchers. Or we'll go for, say, I don't know, say 4%, but without the vouchers. Now, then they're going, you're being unreasonable. How am I being unreasonable? We're offering you a choice here. It's you that's being unreasonable. So it's much harder to argue against. So that's the flexibility one. So always think about, is there a choice you can offer people? Because it makes it look like you're giving over some of the power, but actually, realistically, you're the one that's keeping the bottom line, which is what matters. Yusuf, please. Thanks. Gain allies. Be a bit like Mama Bear. And of course, says be a Mama Bear. That's one way you gain allies, because you're looking after people, and they often respect that. But also, it could be about asking others for advice. So you are Mama Bearing, but say if you're you're a union rep, and you're saying, look, pay negotiations coming up. They're offering 2%. We want to get like 3.5%, 4%. But do you know what? Have you got any ideas? And again, you know what? I would love that Christmas bonus to come back, because that's when I need the money. Barbara, what a brilliant idea that is. Do you know what? I'm going to put that in there. And then when the decision's made and they go for the Christmas bonus and you get 3.5%, and people are going, well, union only got 3.5%. We thought they'd get more than that. No, I don't want a Christmas bonus. Then you've actually got Barbara as your ally, because she's saying, well, I do. And I actually asked them and they listened to me. And so you've made yourself an ally. So gaining allies, great strategy. Yusuf? We've got another of these ranges here, the self-promotion double bind. So this is, if you don't tell people about your accomplishments, you don't get noticed. But if you do tell them about your accomplishments, you get rejected. How many times have we had that great idea and yet we've not made it public because we thought, oh, do I want to sound stupid that? And it would have really helped people. Or of course we do, and then you get shot down just because of who you are. So that's just going back to that area. So what you need to do, again, we need to increase that green area. And the way we increase the green area, of course, there's the techniques we've gone with, but there are others. Yusuf? So, and the prime one, I think, is to use information and expertise. So we feel more confident speaking up when we have expertise, because it gives us credibility. A high person power has credibility. So, if the prime minister, and even the current one, whose credibility is a bit lower than it perhaps was a year ago, speaks, people still listen to him because of his office, because of who he is, right? If you're going on and speaking about economic policy, people will be going like, who's that? Never even heard of them. What do they know? So we need information expertise to back us up. So remember before, when I was talking about productivity, I didn't go in there and go, I think it would help us increase productivity by giving us a pay rise. What I said, it wasn't me. That's what this university report, I got this report from the University of Swansea, and it says increasing productivity, give a pay rise. That's the best way to do it. And so, and again, we're depersonalizing. So you remember I talked about don't make it personal. Depersonalize it. because it's not you talking, but it's the experts. And therefore you have their credibility because you're saying what they've researched. So always get your information in order. Don't just wing it because it doesn't work. And if you want to increase your own credibility, the best way, of course, is to study and upskill yourself. So I've got a link there to what's available if you're in the West Midlands. But of course, a lot of us aren't. There's always chances to upskill. Go and talk to your union learning rep. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, this one, I think we're not going to do it now because it won't work on this forum, but it's a nice bit of homework. When you finish, go and talk to your partner or friend and just say, talk to me about something that you're passionate about. So, it could be fishing or football or whatever. And don't listen to their words, but watch their reactions. See how animated their gestures are, their facial expressions. When you're passionate about something, you're far more assertive because you feel on safe ground. So tap into your passions. When you're talking, make it relevant to something you're passionate about. You become better at arguing, you become better at debating. Okay, next slide. So this is a bit of a summing up. Get in touch with your own needs. What's your bottom line? So remember, I took my pay negotiations. My bottom line was 3.5. Be confident your demand is reasonable. So get your evidence behind it. See from the other point of view. That's that perspective taking, the flexibility. That was Ben in his Mr. Tickle book. Always keep your delivery calm because the moment you start shouting and screaming, think of the baby in the room, you've lost. So, and another nice one is if you want to depersonalize, a good one is to say, I have a policy. So you're basically, it's not you that's objecting to this, it's your policy, even if it's a ridiculous policy you made up in your own head. So, the boss is saying, can you stay and work till 5:30 rather than 5 on a Friday? And you're saying, well, I'm sorry, but I have a policy that I always, finish at 5. I would like to help you, but the policy is that I can't. And hiding behind real policies is really, really good. If there aren't any real ones, even doing that as a last gasp measure can help. And the broken record technique, where you just repeat the same thing over and over again until people get fed up of asking. Next slide, please. That's it. I did say I have gone a little bit over, so it's not given us so much time for Q&A. Although I don't see any questions in the section. So if anybody does have some questions, please put them in the chat. Or any comments. I've been obviously following the chat, and it's nice to see some old faces in there that I've known for years. It's great that you're coming back even after retirement. So that's great to see, and also lots of new people as well. So brilliant. I hope this has been helpful. Priscilla, can I find it on YouTube? I said at the beginning we will be putting this on the Union Learn YouTube channel. So Eustace put there, it'll be up on next week. My face is covering the name of the TED Talk. What is the yes, this was originally developed from a TED Talk. Let's see if I can find out the name on there. I'm having to zoom on my Adam Galinsky. I'll type that in. Yeah, Adam Galinsky. There's actually some really good stuff on TED Talks. I talk about upskilling. Upskilling doesn't have to be doing a course. Watching a debate on YouTube or a TED Talk can be a really good way of getting new ideas in there. I had some positive comments. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Pauline. Sarah, yeah, Michael, Karen. Well, lots of them. Oh, this is great. So, yeah, Ilonka, thank you very much. Jane, and Jane's going to become a prime minister. Yeah, well, I'm not going to say what I would say about prime ministers because it's probably not appropriate. But is that TUC website? It's the Union website. So the TUC has two websites. It has the main TUC website and the Union Learn website, which is all about union learning. But yeah. And Liz has put COVID has knocked our confidence as reps. I think you're right. I think on a serious and quite a somber note, it COVID's knocked a lot of people's confidence. I was talking to a gentleman that I know. He's a doctor. He's a university lecturer, very intelligent man, very confident man. He's traveled all around the world, and yet talking to him on the phone a week or two ago, he was worried about things that he would never have been worried about before. And I said, mate, that's the COVID talking. That is not you. And he's like, you're right. But I've just been in here too long. I need to get out more. So,
Matt,
yes,
you have a couple of questions.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks. Is gender a dynamic affecting assertiveness? Okay. Is gender a dynamic affecting assertiveness? I would say definitely yes. Now, of course, the question there, and this is more for a biologist to answer than me, is it naturally, or is that because of society? I think it's probably more to do with society and traditional gender roles rather than anything biologically different. There may be people who've got other evidence contrary to that, but it is, women. I talk about the low power bind, like women. It is statistically proven ask for less and are less likely to get what they ask for. And I think that is to do with the structure of society over centuries, millennia, and and these reinforcement of traditional gender roles from an early age. But it is a massive factor, yes. But again, whether it's biological is another matter. I suspect it isn't. And then, hi Matthew, not relating to this course, but did you get to look at Mondly? So that's Martin. Yes, I did look at Mondly. I'll be honest, I had a very quick look at it, but I think you had to. Did you have to pay for Mondly? It wasn't much, but I think you did. So Mondly is a language learning app, and this is following on for our free learning webinar that we did, because I was talking about different language learning platforms. So we talked about Mondly, we talked about Duolingo, we talked about italki, and so I looked at it. I'll be honest with you, because at the moment I'm learning on Duolingo one language, and I also learn another one on italki, and I just couldn't cope with chucking a third language in there. But when I finish my Spanish on Duolingo, then I will be looking at the Monday one, definitely. Women. So some discussion going on there about the gender issue. Boy and girl. Anne's got boy and girl twins. Try to bring them up with the same opportunities. The girl has little confidence, and the boy participates less, and he's full of confidence. Do you know what? I think that I recognise that from my own kids, actually. Yeah, the girl is a lot. I mean, maybe she just naturally is shy. I don't know, but she's very participative, whereas the lad's always preferred to do his own thing, but is really, really confident. Okay, we've got 2 minutes left. Yeah, ethnic minorities being assertive is seen as aggressive. I think there's right. I mean, I think that depends on the society you're in, but I think in this country, I think it's definitely it definitely comes across that way. And also, I think there's differences between different ethnic minorities as well. I think there are all these stereotypes that people have, and so I think not wishing to speak out of turn, but I think most people don't expect Chinese people to be very assertive, but they think they're clever and they work hard. And actually, there's no truth in that whatsoever. I know some Chinese people who are very assertive and some Chinese people who aren't. But I think those kind of ethnic stereotypes really do have a massive role to play. Yep. Okay. I think it's probably about time to go. Thanks again for turning up. Great attendance today. Do join us on the 31st of March. It is a bit of a gap, but we'll be having them more regularly after then. And then, of course, if you are in the Midlands, the 8th of April, the ULR Forum. And on the 1st of March, we have the Radical History School. in conversation with Sheila Rowbottom. I don't know if Yusuf put the link in for that. I think he did. That's run by the TUC Southwest. And so those of you who are interested in the gender issue, well, she's a big feminist, big in women's liberation. So yeah, that's probably well your kind of thing. And do tell them we've directed you there. So because I did say I'd make an effort to support their endeavor, because I think it's really good. Okay, that's me. Thanks for everything you do for your unions. Our unions are our activists. You know, without our activists, we don't have unions. We're just an insurance policy. So thanks a lot, and I shall see you again. Goodbye.